Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shaman's Cave. I'm Renee Baribeau, and excited to be here with you today.
Hi everyone, I'm Sandra Ingerman. Welcome to the Shaman's Cave. We have a topic that I think people who are have been practicing shamanism for a long time are all aware of. And due to social media, we become more aware of issues that are coming up within our communities today. And I'm not on Facebook much anymore. I go to the Shamans or Gardeners of Energy, which is the page I started, where you can only post something inspirational to lift everybody up in their day. And I go to the Shaman's Cave, and that's pretty much it. And but I do hear things, and so then I start going out and looking and seeing what I can see. And there's always been a tremendous amount of division in shamanism. There always has been. And there's always been, before we drop bombs on people, which, happens quite a bit, um, people use psychic warfare as a way to deal with territorial issues and all of that. So when we start talking about psychic warfare, to me, it's not worse than putting putting bombs down on countries. And so what we're seeing right now on Facebook is all this stuff of trying to divide up shamanism, what shamanism is, the definition of shamanism, where shamanism originated from, and what culture is the most powerful shamanic culture, which the fighting going on Facebook about which shamanic culture is the most powerful shamanic culture is crazy, because what that shows is that people don't know what shamanism is. We're actually, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to trigger anybody, we're literally slaves for the spirits, literally slaves for the spirits. We have no power. We have a lot of power to create and be in nature and work spiritually, of course. But in shamanism, we're bringing through, we're a hollow bone, we're a channel for beings who have no form and come from a different dimension and can bring in this amazing formless energies that have a frequency that can heal, that can help us personally, collectively. And it's all about your connection with those spirits. And that's how shamanism has always been. And so if you start talking about that shamanism dates back over 100,000 years and that it's a universal practice, where is everybody getting that a particular culture is more powerful than another culture when the practice is just direct revelation?
I think about what the winds told me one time. The winds told me, Renee, we were here at the beginning, some 4 billion years ago. And so the information was always on the wind. And it was as cultures grew up around the globe and they needed different set of information, whether it was hunting or plant picking or whatever, then they received the information that was always on the wind for anyone to hear, but that it became specific to the region that you lived. And so like the Siberian shamans needed, or I don't know that they call them, they needed one set of instructions, whereas the people in the Polynesian islands needed another set of instructions. Like what we were talking about before in a recent show about that direct revelation, and but we don't all need the same information. We don't all need the same power. We don't all need the same, if you live on land, you might not need the wind for sailing your boat.
Right.
So let's get clear what we really need these spirits to be working with us right now, for me, is how do we get along?
Exactly. And it's really important to understand what Renee's just sharing with us, because it really is the core of the issue, is that everybody was given a different set of instructions depending on where you live. So I live at 7,400 feet at the desert. Um, I'm not going to be given the same set of instructions by the spirits as people get in Siberia, as people get in Peru. It's a completely different environment.
Hmm.
Um, Spirits wouldn't be telling people in Siberia to do fall planting, um, but we're spirits here teach us to do fall planting. That might seem like a little example, but it's not. Um, because the spirits give us the information of what we need to survive through the different seasons, and that's going to be different depending on the culture. The illnesses are different depending on the culture. The emotional states of people are different depending on the culture. Our ancestral connections are different depending on the culture. So, how can we even start to begin to compare? That's where I get lost. That's where I get lost, because everybody got different sets of instructions, but now everybody's trying to compare, and I'm just lost. That's all I can say.
And not only that, something that I realized really early in my shamanic training, or my training of whatever training we want to call it, was that the spirits are like they're in everything, the plants, the trees, and they love to get people to listen to them. They're always, vying for attention. And so just because somebody gets some information, depending on their own filters and their own ability to heal it and their own ability to transcend it, it may be spam on the airwaves.
Hmm.
So, I used to hear, oh, spirit told me this, and spirit, what spirit?
Right.
And who are they talking to? And for what purpose? I just used to think to myself, these people, so what? They've got all of their, their scan is open, but what good is the information if it doesn't teach me how to bake a loaf of bread?
Yeah, well, in my book, Welcome Home, I wrote a whole section on this topic of how many people would come up to me at workshops and said, my power animal told me it's very important for me to eat chocolate chip cookies. How do we get chocolate chip cookies to this retreat center? And I said, your power animal told you that you really need to eat chocolate chip cookies, or do you really need to do you really want to eat chocolate chip cookies? Could you please answer me honestly? What do you want? Why do you have to say that the spirits told you? Why can't you say this is a wish of mine, um, instead of that the spirits are telling me to eat chocolate chip cookies? I mean, it's that's where people had gotten to with the work. But what I've seen over the years is people are starting to grow out of that, and are moving into the next evolution of the work. And part of it is because of all the dismemberment that we've been through in the last years, and what's coming still. That dismemberment really does clear you out. It's meant to put your ego aside so that it's your spirit that's more present, that the wisdom, the wise part of you, your soul that directs your passion and meaning for life, that you have a path. You actually have a path that you know that you can walk on, that brings you to a particular place.
Hmm. And for me, the standard that I hold my work to is, am I of service to other people? Does this work benefit other people? Do people reach out to have that experience? And I can take that to my work situation too. Is the work that I'm doing beneficial to other people? And how is that mirrored back to me in a way that says, yeah, this is what spirit wants me to be doing.
Yeah.
Because when I think about, like, one time I was working as a used car salesperson. Yes, I can sell, well, I can't say that anymore, but I can sell anything, right? But was I happy at letting somebody drive off in a car that I knew was going to fall apart in 2,000 miles?
Hmm.
It didn't feed my soul in the way that, next month I'm bringing together people at a behavioral health conference where we're talking about cutting edge ideas that start to bring in the spiritual with the scientific, with the time that we're living in now. We don't have to go back to, we don't have to go back 1,000 years to when we were just exploring ideas, but we can take what spirit gives us now in with our good education and our tools to have better results. But so I agree with Sandra that we're looking at the wrong things when we start, duking it out about who has more spiritual power.
Yeah, we all have, everybody has spiritual power as long as they're speaking to their spirits and they're bringing through the spirits of the land where they live. Everybody, I mean, think of everybody making pilgrimages to Peru because there is such a long history of shamans being able to hear the land and hear the spirits, and all the shamanism in Siberia, which is more what I'm attracted to. It's more the part of the world that my ancestors come from. And how they've been able to survive in the conditions that they're in, and their healing practices. I mean, just amazing. And these are just two examples. I mean, there are thousands of different shamanic ways of working, and they're all powerful. They're all powerful because people are bringing through the spirit of the land, um, the nature beings where they live, and the spirits where they live, and their own ancestors. They're not going to other people's ancestors, they're going to their ancestors. And that's where the power is. So I'm just in awe of other shamanic cultures. I'm just in awe. I've never judged who has had more power. I'm just so interested in how different people work. And for me, my investigation was, well, this is all wonderful, but I'm a therapist in the United States. How do I bridge this into working with clients in the 40 years that I've been working in the present? And so I've had to birth new bodies of work because those aren't issues that any other shamanic culture is dealing with. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, we have to keep birthing for where we're living and for the culture that we're working with. We have to keep birthing new ways of working for right now and where we are. We can be inspired by other shamanic cultures. I'm unbelievably inspired by every shamanic culture. I love the work and I love the deep history of the work. And it's a real feeling of grief for me that, I didn't have that in my own life. But we have the opportunity to help people now as long as we don't divide, um,
Mm-hmm.
as long as we realize that we're doing our work for our particular community.
Mm-hmm. And that your medicine might be needed tomorrow or today for somebody else. Because truthfully, there's, even though there was different ways of approaching it all over the world, basically the reasons people were doing it were the same. They wanted to ensure the longevity of their people. They wanted to make sure their animals were healthy, and they needed to make sure that their food supplies were good. So those things haven't changed. We have those same things at the forefront of our lives today. So does it give you any more power to think that you have a leg up on, how you're going to eat next week than somebody over in a different culture that doesn't. I mean, it just is ludicrous to think that there's any other thing than thinking about how are we all going to survive this mess.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just, I get so lost in the wonder of the knowledge that shamanic cultures um, got their direct revelation, whether it was Peruvian or Siberian or Nepalese or different cultures, how they got the information to actually speak to the plants, for the plants to actually say, I can heal this, and this is how you make me, and make the medicine on the full moon only,
Hmm.
and drink it on the new moon. Where does this information? I am so in awe of how shamanic cultures came up with all of this. And now companies are going and chopping down everything, trying to make things into synthetic pills that for thousands of years shamans have already been talking, the people in the community have already been talking to these plants. And so for me, that's the awe for me in shamanism.
Hmm.
And so I can't get into comparing because I'm just into the awe of how did these people do it? Because I've been working at this for 40 years and I've done a lot of good, but um, God, what we can see other shamanic cultures working with and how they work with nature in a different way than in the Western world. Um, I'm just in awe. I can't judge. I can't divide. I'm just in awe. And that's all
I
I
love that. I submitted a topic this week because, there's all these psychedelic conferences on behavioral health. And I wrote, the topic was, can we take the medicine away from the prayer? Can we, like, I forget the title of it. And I submitted it to, and she said, Renee, so far we've just been looking at the research. We haven't been looking at the methodology, but I'd be willing to explore it with you as a topic, because it's been bothering me for a year or two. I work they're talking about the ketamine and now the psilocybin, and it's just like, but who's talking about the God?
right.
Like, are you giving somebody a really solid spiritual foundation along with a 2-hour ketamine session?
Right.
I don't know the answer, and I'm not here to judge on the answer, but I think we have as leaders, we have a responsibility to get along in order that there's a real opportunity here for, we were a small bunch for 40 years, and now there's a real opportunity for millions of people to get on board. And, how are we going to be role models for this?
Yeah, how are we going to be role models, and how are we going to open our hearts to hold people who are working in integrity with direct revelation and not get into a whole judgment thing.
Hmm.
And I'm using the word integrity because there are a lot of people who are practicing out of integrity, and I'm not putting them in here. I'm not saying we should support everybody, whether they're hurting people or not. I'm saying that for people who are working in a good way, who are birthing and downloading information that's coming from their land that they live on and their spirits that they work with. That's what we need. We can't
Hmm.
judge what other people are doing.
Right. I think enough said, but we just need to hold each other up.
Right, right.
Period. We need to hold each other up, get along, and not be part of the division. And I don't even want to judge the division, because maybe the division is what do you call that, when the seed divides, and so that something new can grow up. Maybe we need to have this division. So I'm not even going to get into that, but I want to say that in my own practices, what I like to emulate is how do we get along.
Right. Yeah, I That's an interesting point. I think I'm going to journey on that. What is the positive of division? What does division do? Because it is an energy that's around, and it's the pervasive energy on the planet right now. And it would be interesting for all of us to journey and to share. Is there a positive side of division? Does division actually lead to a process of rebirth? Do things have to divide? Is that mitosis or something like that?
Yeah, there's a word for it, and I don't know the scientific word, but I'll have to look it up. And
Yeah.
because you know me, I'll be writing about it in like because I'm always looking for what we do, and I'm always looking for what goes on. And I'm working on my new book, and I'm always looking at what are the processes of nature that we are really emulating, and how can we best emulate them. And if division is part of it, all right, I'm going to celebrate division. And I want to be a positive force of that, but I don't want to be battling it out with people who are dividing in their own way in their own communities, because we need to come together.
Yeah, division might have a positive somewhere. Again, I have to journey on that.
All right, we're going to journey on it and then we'll talk about it.
But where there is no excuse is for people threatening people with psychic warfare for their opinions about shamanism.
Yeah.
That is not okay. And so we need to learn how to open up our hearts a little bit more, do our own work, forget about what other people are doing, and how can we come together and create a stronger collective? Because a stronger collective just naturally, it's not an active process, it's a passive process, just naturally creates more energy and frequency to create change.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. I don't even go, if I go over to a shamanic group and there's a lot of division going on, I just don't go back. One thing with the Shaman's Cave, and come on over and join us, is that Sylvia and I do a pretty good job of, we don't even talk about it, but we don't allow those kind of, if somebody comes with a real question and a real concern, I approve those. But when somebody comes in and starts with their judgmental selves about what is right and what's wrong, I never let those comments come through. And I don't think she does either. So we try to keep a really safe container where, you can come with a real conversation. Somebody came with something really serious today about questioning their child's, mental ability through addiction. And you could tell it was heartfelt. You could tell that they really didn't know how to go to how to do with this. Those kind of concerns are real. Bring them over to the Shaman's Cave. We'd love to hear from you.
I'd answer that one.
What?
I did write along.
Did you write? Right. And then Sandra, if she thinks they're worthy, she usually writes on them too. And I, and I sit there and they're like, oh, how's this? But if somebody starts to talk about their ways the right way, go to a different group.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we want to inspire people. That was why I created the Shamans or Gardeners of Energy. It's kind of like, where do we go to get put a smile on our face on social media? Because so much of social media has turned into how much can we bash each other, and we just need to, as Renee keeps saying, we need to learn how to get along a little bit better, and we really need to understand that this dismemberment process is not going to end until we do start getting the lessons of the power of unity and the power of love.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we've said enough about that. And for me, when I'm not getting along, and I'll end on this, there's always something in me that needs attention.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the other person ever.
Right.
So if I have a problem with you, it's my problem, and I need to heal something deeper in myself so that I can allow you to be who you are.
Right.
All right. So make sure you like us, like this show, share it, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
We're always trying to get you to subscribe, but it's really important to us. And so Please subscribe and please let people know about our show. And we really love you. And you're doing great work. And post on Shaman's Cave and let us know how you're doing.
Oh, can I say one last thing? And then we'll hang up. The Winds of Spirit is now on Audible. So if you haven't listened to the Wind, if you haven't read the Wind book, you can now listen to it 7 hours when you're driving somewhere and get it all in, a couple of good chunks.
Yeah, yeah. Renee's work is so beautiful. It's
Oh,
just so beautiful. And I'm sure the Audible book is just wonderful. So, congratulations, Renee.
thank you, and we'll see you soon.